It stands to reason that rising fuel prices will have a domino effect on society and the economy. And experts and researchers are calling for a review of administrative costs and ways to mitigate against the impact on already overburdened households. Now, earlier, we spoke to Wits University Political Economist Dr. Lumkile Mondi.
Many scholars, including the Institute for Social Justice, is talking about introducing a basic income grant, which will be critical for us in addressing the problems that we're facing, particularly for poor households who are in a worse position than many South Africans. So hang in there, things will be better in the near future.
So, again, that message we can hear on and on, Dr. Mondi, but when you talk to the women, such as the one we interviewed in that taxi rank, as the taxi was filling up fuel, talking about just how what a threat the fuel price hikes are on her, little bit of liquidity that she has, which is now going to put into increasing taxi fares. This is cold comfort.
Absolutely. I think what we need to do is to really work harder to reinvest on infrastructure. We know that rail is a very important vehicle in this environment, particularly if we're going to be dealing also with climate change, given the fact that South Africa is reliant on fossil fuels. And therefore, even the very motor cars and the taxis that we're using are not sufficient for us to combat any threats as a result of changing climate and the weather patterns. Therefore, I think in this period where people are complaining, the government should be investing more in infrastructure, particularly rail in this case, as we try and mitigate and plan ahead for climate change so that we can get more people in the trains, and in doing so, make sure that it's subsidized so that it's accessible to all. And in that process, not only will we drive jobs, create opportunities for many people to move within the Republic, but also will be addressing the issue of climate change, given that South Africa is far behind in terms of planning and adapting towards net zero in 2050. So this is an opportunity for South Africa and policymakers. I know that South Africans are really suffering, but let's invest on universal public infrastructure that will hit two things: cheap and affordable transport, but also climate change going forward.
Those two things sound like longer and slower burns in this economy. And of course, they always say, when's the best time to plant a bamboo? It would be 20 years ago. What's the next best time is now. So similar situation, analogous to South Africa, is start fixing that infrastructure now so people have an alternative. But in this moment, consumers are greatly stretched. So what's the biggest fuel price related risk you think we're facing in this country right now?
I just want to remind Africans, because we forget these things, that a lot of it has to do, firstly, with the experience with the invasion by Russia of Ukraine, which put prices tremendously. Secondly, the geopolitical repositioning that is taking place, because we know that the BRICS Plus members are now composing about 60% of all producing countries, meaning that the cartel is very, very strong, and therefore it's unlikely to increase production, which could lower price. Thirdly, the weakness of the economy has led to the continuous vulnerability of the rand, which has been weakening tremendously. And finally, the fact that commodities in South Africa, commodity prices have gone down tremendously. Therefore, we've got various problems in our economy whereby the oil prices have gone up. However, the platinum and others have gone down. So this is the hardship that our economy is facing. But I think at the moment, it's not time to panic. It's not going to be a short-term solution. But I think let's now plan for a bigger change going forward so that South Africa's economy is able to adapt and deal with these crises that are likely to arise from time to time, given the geopolitics, given the weather patterns that are changing, and generally, given that many South Africans remain marginalized. And in the near future, if we don't embark on this strategy now, they'll continue being marginalized.
So, again, I want to go back to, you were talking about the bigger factors around the fuel price that are creating pressure. And you mentioned the war and so on. But what is your perspective on proposals to review, for example, how fuel is priced, including cutting back on the RAF piece, managing that entity better, reducing or having a conversation about reducing the margins from wholesalers and retailers, or even, trying to cut back on the taxes and the fuel levies?
I think this is not time to debate these reforms at the moment. I think we cannot be cutting and giving away these supports to households, as well as the retailers who are using a lot of the wealth to give food to us. I think this is the structure of our economies. If we use this to invest on infrastructure, which I think that's the agency that's required at the moment, and then we can deal with reforms when we're in a much stronger position. I don't think that should be rushing reforms of our fuel pricing. I think it's very dangerous, because it will starve the state of money and therefore will make it difficult for the state, given our fiscal position.